Good morning, respected Emeritus Chairperson, sir, Dr. Jaiswal, sir, respected Usha Sharma, ma'am, Usha Shekhawat, ma'am, and other dignitaries and faculty. Today's PGCR is 20th in the series of the postgraduate combined rounds, and again we will be discussing a very important topic, that is hypertension in pregnancy. As we all know that pregnancy poses several challenges to human body, and there are many physiological changes in the pregnancy which cause different problems, which can cause different problems in pregnancy. One of them is hypertension. To detect hypertension early in pregnancy is very important to prevent the complications and the long-term complications because of the hypertension. Today's PGCR is being has been prepared and is being delivered by the Department of Gynec and Ops, and the chairperson for today's PGCR are Dr. Usha Shekhawat ma'am and Dr. Swati Garg ma'am, and the moderator for today's PGCR is Dr. Priyanka Goyal. Over to you, Dr. Priyanka.
Good morning all. As sir told, we have gathered here for 20th PGCR. Myself, Dr. Priyanka Goyal, Associate Professor in Department of Ops and Gynecology. We have prepared a seminar along with our residents on the topic, very important topic, hypertension in pregnancy. We'll be covering all the topics, including the classification, the clinical features, the management and medical as well as the obstetric management and the eclampsia. So the flow of our seminar would be epidemiology, classification, etiopathogenesis and clinical features will be covered by our second year PG resident Dr. Sonali Malhotra. Then the hemodynamic changes in pregnancy will be covered by Dr. Tushtika Vyas, JR2 from the Department of Physiology. The management in total will be covered by Dr. Sejal Saknani. She is a third year PG resident from our department, and the medical management, that is antihypertensive drugs, will be covered by Dr. Anish Gandhi. He is third year PG resident from Department of Medicine. So I would now request Dr. Sonali Malhotra to start our seminar.
Good morning, respected dignitaries, teachers and my colleagues. I, Dr. Sonali Malhotra, JR2 from Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, will be discussing epidemiology, classification and clinical features of hypertensive disorders in pregnancy. Hypertensive disorders in pregnancy complicates 2 to 8% pregnancies worldwide. It accounts for 14% maternal deaths worldwide, including India, and it is a major contributor to premature births. It is a risk factor for future cardiovascular and metabolic diseases in women. Now moving on to the classification. It is classified into gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, eclampsia, chronic hypertension and chronic hypertension with superimposed preeclampsia. Elaborating each one of these types, gestational hypertension is defined as new onset hypertension, that is a blood pressure of more than or equal to 140 by 90 mm of mercury after 20 weeks of gestation without proteinuria or other preeclampsia findings. Preeclampsia is defined as new onset hypertension after 20 weeks of gestation and is associated with significant proteinuria or other end organ damage. Chronic hypertension is hypertension that precedes pregnancy or develops before 20 weeks of gestation. Chronic hypertension with superimposed preeclampsia is chronic hypertension with new onset proteinuria or other end organ dysfunction. Lastly, eclampsia is new onset generalized tonic-clonic seizures in women with already existing preeclampsia. Now moving on to the risk factors. High risk factors include a patient who has a history of previous preeclampsia or has multifetal gestation like twin pregnancy or triplet pregnancy, has a history of medical disorders such as chronic hypertension, renal disease, type 1 or 2 diabetes or autoimmune diseases such as antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. Moderate risk factors include a patient who is a primigravida or who is obese or has an advanced maternal age or has a family history of preeclampsia or belongs to the socio-demographic characteristics of low socioeconomic status. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Tushtika Vyas to discuss the hemodynamic changes in pregnancy.
A very good morning to all the dignitaries, faculty and my colleagues. I'll be discussing the hemodynamic changes in pregnancy. It includes the changes in plasma volume, cardiac output changes and blood pressure changes. Starting with the blood volume, there is gradual increase to 30 to 40% by 32 weeks of pregnancy. Red blood cell mass increases by 30%, and the increase in plasma is greater and faster than RBC, resulting in physiological anemia. The hemoglobin falls by 2 grams per deciliter. The need for the increase is to meet the increased demand of growing fetus and to protect against the fluid loss in labor. Coming to cardiac output, it depends upon heart rate and stroke volume. It increases to 30% by the 27 weeks, mainly due to increase in the stroke volume, and it is maintained until 4 days postpartum. Coming to blood pressure, in the early gestation, the systolic blood pressure increases due to increase in the cardiac output, and the diastolic pressure decreases due to decrease in the peripheral vascular resistance. In the first and second trimester, the systolic and diastolic blood pressure falls due to vasodilation effect of multiple factors like nitric oxide, progesterone and relaxin. Third trimester, there is again increase to the non-pregnant values due to increased aldosterone and estrogen effect. In some women, there is experience of supine hypotension. So what is the physiology behind this? Due to gravid uterus, there is compression of the inferior vena cava, leading to decreased venous return, lowered blood pressure and decreased cardiac output. So we advise the patient or the person to lie in the left lateral position to avoid the compression of IVC. The hemodynamic changes includes there is increase in the blood volume by 30 to 40%, cardiac output and stroke volume increases by 30%, heart rate increases by 20 to 25%, systemic vascular resistance by 15 to 20%, and there is a fall in hemoglobin by 2 grams per deciliter. Now I would like to invite Dr. Sonali Manotra to discuss the pathophysiology and clinical features of hypertensive disorders in pregnancy.
Moving on to the etiopathogenesis. The 4 factors are responsible for this. Previously discussed maternal risk factors, genetic factors, abnormal trophoblastic invasion and immunological factors. All these lead to imbalance in angiogenic and anti-angiogenic markers. It leads to decrease of angiogenic proteins, that is the vascular endothelial growth factor and angiopoietin, and increase in the anti-angiogenic proteins, that is soluble FMS like tyrosinase 1 and soluble endoglin. All these leads to endothelial dysfunction, ultimately leading to end organ dysfunction. Now we see the normal versus abnormal trophoblastic invasion. As we can see here, in normal pregnancy there is invasion of endovascular trophoblast into the walls of the spiral arterioles of the uteroplacental bed, leading to the vasodilatation and decreased resistance to blood flow. While here in preeclampsia there is failure of invasion of trophoblast, leading to formation of high resistance spiral arterioles, leading to decreased blood supply to the fetus. All these leads to the uteroplacental insufficiency, ultimately leading to fetal growth restriction, abruption, stillbirth and intrauterine fetal demise. As preeclampsia is a multi-system disorder, it affects other systems as well. In hematological system, it causes thrombocytopenia and disseminated intravascular coagulation. In central nervous system, it affects by causing cerebral vasoconstriction, leading to cerebral edema, ultimately causing seizures. It also leads to visual disturbances in the patients. In cardiovascular system, we see subendothelial hemorrhages and cardiomyopathy. In liver, we see periportal necrosis, which is a feature of HELLP syndrome, that is hemolysis, elevated liver enzymes and low platelet syndrome. In renal system, glomerular endothelial damage is seen, which causes proteinuria, and in lungs we see pulmonary edema. Now moving on to routine antenatal visits. WHO recommends total 8 visits in a low risk pregnancy. In first trimester, the visit should be within 12 weeks. In second trimester, 2 visits are to be done at 20 and 26 weeks. In third trimester, the visit should be at 30 weeks, 34 weeks and 2 weekly till 40 weeks. We advise the patient to get in the first trimester to get a routine ANC profile with a dating scan to check the viability of fetus. Folic acid supplementation is recommended, and a specific scan, that is the NT-NB scan, is done at 11 to 13 plus 6 weeks of POG. It is a special test as it looks for the nuchal translucy and nasal bone, and is also used for the screening of preeclampsia. American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology recommends prescribing low-dose aspirin to high-risk patients for developing preeclampsia.
Why aspirin?
Sir, it is an antiplatelet drug, COX inhibitor, which decreases thromboxane A2, which is increased in the pathogenesis of preeclampsia.
Basically, to increase the circulation.
Circulation, yeah.
To prevent the ischemia, we give the low dose aspirin.
Aspirin, yes, sir.
How much the dose?
Sir, 81 milligram is recommended.
81.
Yes, sir. Low dose.
ऐसा
Sir,
कुछ
low
खास
dose
नहीं है।
aspirin is 81 milligram and
कौन आता है? हाँ, 81 क्यों बोल रही है? 80 बोल दो। I don't know whether 81 tablet comes or not. It can be anything from 50 milligram to 150 milligram, but usually 75 milligram used.
okay.
Majority, whether is anti-phospholipid syndrome or prevention of these things, usually, and even the cardiac cases also. Sure.
In the second trimester, an anomaly scan is done at 18 to 22 weeks of gestation. Both the doses of tetanus diphtheria vaccine are covered 1 month apart, and iron and calcium supplementation is started. In the third trimester, we advise glucose challenge test at 28 weeks, USG fetal well-being at 30 to 32 weeks for growth monitoring, and iron and calcium supplementation is continued.
इसका PIS से क्या relation है जो आपने बताया?
So,
Routine
no, we are
antenatal
just
care
discussing the routine antenatal care
is-
and
the topic is preeclampsia or
Yes, sir.
hypertensive disorders.
yes, sir.
So no need for mention.
So we'll discuss.
You are a
further.
postgraduate resident, no?
Yes, sir.
No need for discussing.
Okay. Now moving on to preeclampsia, which is diagnosed after 20 weeks of gestation. We get a PIH profile done apart from the routine antenatal profile done. USG fetal well-being is advised with Doppler studies. In maternal assessment, outpatient management is done. Patient is advised weekly follow-up with daily BP record of 1 week and to look for the symptoms of severe preeclampsia. In fetal assessment, we ask the patient to monitor her daily fetal movement count. Fetal growth monitoring is checked by checking the weight gain of patient, fundal height and abdominal girth. USG fetal well-being with Doppler studies is done 2 weekly. Screening for preeclampsia. It has a positive predictive value of 3 to 8%. Fetal Medicine Foundation has developed a tool for assessment of risk of preeclampsia. It is known as the FMF triple test, which includes maternal characters, mean arterial pressure, uterine artery pulsatility index and placental growth factor. Before moving further, I would like to ask my fellow colleagues to could you please tell me some clinical features of preeclampsia, patient presenting to the routine antenatal OPD? Moving further to the chief complaints with which the patient presents, there is complaint of pedal edema. Tightness of ring on the finger is the earliest manifestation of preeclampsia. Gradually swelling may extend to the face, abdominal wall, vulva and even the whole body. The alarming symptoms are the patient presents to the OPD with headache which is located over the occipital or frontal region. There is complaint of disturbed sleep. We ask the patient for history of hypertension in family in earlier pregnancy or preconception. If there is history of hypertension in previous pregnancy, there is 70% more chance of developing preeclampsia, 20 to 40% more chance of developing preeclampsia for daughters of preeclamptic mothers, and 22 to 47% more chance in twin sisters.
ये क्या सिग्निफाई करती है फैमिली हिस्ट्री? कौन सा फैक्टर सिग्निफाई करती है?
So genetic factor of
और कुछ? Immunological
factor.
कौन सा immunology? Which immunofactor? एलो, ऑटो, आइसो, कौन सी करती है?
Or allo or
No, it is not autoimmune. It is allo. Or as you see, if a lady who has developed preeclampsia in the first pregnancy and by chance because of reasons, if she conceived with other partner, then chances of the eclampsia will be more. So the father factor is also there. कोई डाइवोर्स के बाद किसी दोबारा शादी में कुछ हुआ है, तो उसके बाद ये इम्पोर्टेंट चीज है कि पैटर्नल फैक्टर इज ऑल्सो रेस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर द eclampsia. So it is neither totally auto nor totally allo, it is semi-allo. Semi-allo immunity, ठीक है ना, factors responsible. These things are important if it is auto then family,
Okay.
apart from genetic, ठीक है. Sure.
And a history of medical disorders such as diabetes, thyroid disorder, anemia, chronic kidney disease and
Thyroid
antiphospholipid.
में diabetes में क्यों होता है? Why there are more chances in diabetes of having PIH? किस चीज का डिसऑर्डर होता है प्रेगनेंसी हाइपरटेंशन?
Sir,
What is the key factor for the hypertension in the pregnancy?
sir, vasospasm and endothelial
Beta,
dysfunction.
it is placenta. So any condition which give rise to abnormalities in the placenta.
Okay.
All right. So like in diabetes, the placenta will be larger.
No.
ठीक है ना? In twins, multifetal pregnancy, again it will be larger. ठीक है ना? And in even the moles, partial moles, the placenta will be larger. ठीक है ना? So these are the factors which are responsible for. No, that is the definitive treatment, because if you terminate the pregnancy, placenta will be out, and in fact आपने जो definition बताई ना, उसमें भी आपको बोलना चाहिए कि chronic hypertension है, that will remain hypertension after delivery also.
After 12 weeks.
While in the PIH or a superimposed, it will not be there.
Yes.
ठीक है ना? That will make the complete definition.
Okay.
चलो.
In twins, hydramnios and hydatiform mole, we see earlier hypertension in pregnancy. Now moving on to examination. We check for the pre-pregnancy BMI. A lean patient has incidence of preeclampsia up to 4.3%, and an obese patient has an increased risk for preeclampsia to 13.3%. Weight gain. A weight gain of more than 2.2 kg in 1 month or 450 grams in 1 week is significant to cause preeclampsia. BP of more than 140 by 90 mm of mercury.
कितनी बार लोगे?
Sir, we take...
एक बार में कह दो कि 140/90.
No, sir. 2 consecutive readings, 4 hours apart.
So you should mention that. Huh? Then only you can define the hypertension. ठीक है ना? Reading of more than 140 or equal to 140/90 on 2 separate
Occasions,
occasions,
4 hours apart.
at least 4 hours apart. Then you will label it as hypertension. Otherwise you can unnecessarily treat the patient. ठीक है ना? Anxiety से भी patient को blood pressure हो सकता है. Immediate दिखाने आएगा उसको.
Pitting edema over the ankles, thyroid swelling, and cardiovascular system changes which show signs of pulmonary edema.
What
And
are the signs of pulmonary edema?
sir, increased jugular venous pressure,
Cramps, bronchitis.
basal crepitations.
चलो.
Now moving on to obstetric examination, we look for the fundal height and measure the abdominal girth. It is noted to rule out fetal growth restriction. Prevention of preeclampsia. We advise the patient lifestyle changes, regular antenatal care and regular physical activity. Heparin has a role in prevention of antiphospholipid antibody syndrome. Only calcium supplementation and low dose aspirin has a role in preeclampsia prevention. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Sejal Saklani to discuss the management of hypertensive disorders in pregnancy.
Thank you, Sonali. Now, I, Dr. Sejal Saklani, third year resident from Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, is going to further talk about management of hypertensive disorders in pregnancy. So, what are the objectives when we look for managing the patient coming to us with preeclampsia? Firstly, we should stabilize the hypertension of the patient and prevent progression to severe preeclampsia.
Kindly defined severe preeclampsia.
So, severe preeclampsia is defined.
Not defined before, no?
So, severe preeclampsia is defined if a patient presents with a BP of more than 160/110, with or without proteinuria. Proteinuria,
Without proteinuria.
so with proteinuria of more than 0.3 gram per deciliter, and end organ changes which could include renal organ damage or dysfunction or liver function.
Liver, हाँ बहुत अच्छा बोल रहे हैं.
So all liver functions
और?
leading to elevated liver enzymes in the
और?
liver, and
Brain के बताना.
further leading to neurological dysfunction or blurring of vision.
ठीक है.
Further, to prevent eclampsia, prevent further complication and delivery of a healthy baby in optimal time, it is important to restore the health of the mother. Treatment is mostly symptomatic, aiming to control hypertension and further complications. Definitive treatment is delivery of fetus and placenta. Management. Further management include clinical assessment of the patient. We look for headache, right upper quadrant or epigastric pain, visual disturbances, oliguria, blood pressure and weight record, fluid intake and urine output record has to be taken. Maternal and fetal assessment will be done in the same way as discussed by Dr. Sonali.
क्या लिखा है आपने? Platelet counts कितना होना चाहिए?
Sir, it should be more than 75.
What is the red flag? What is the warning sign of platelet count?
One-
जो आप हैं?
1 lakh,
Yes.
less than 1 lakh.
घबरा क्यों रही हो?
Uh,
Coagulation profile, please.
Sir, coagulation profile we will check for PT-INR and APTTK and
यदि
fibrinogen if in
platelet
case
counts
of...
कम है तो ब्लीडिंग टाइम पे फर्क पड़ेगा, क्लोटिंग टाइम पे तो कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा.
Yes, sir.
क्लोटिंग टाइम पे फर्क पड़ेगा, उसके लिए कौन सा टेस्ट करोगे आप?
Uh,
फिब्रिनोजन.
fibrinogen, it will be look for HELP syndrome. In case of HELP, we'll look for fibrinogen.
हेल्प तो बाद में आएगा, पहले नॉर्मल देख लो ना. चलो.
Antihypertensive drugs. When should we start the patient with antihypertensive drug? According to NICE guidelines and Indian Society of Hypertension, it is recommended that antihypertensive drugs should be started on a diastolic blood pressure of more than 90 mm of mercury and systolic blood pressure of more than 140 mm of mercury. Target BP on antihypertensive drugs, according to American Association of Obstetrics and Gynecology, should be less than 140 by 90 mm of Hg, and according to NICE guidelines should be maintained 135/85 by 85 mm of Hg. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Anish Gandhi to discuss further on antihypertensive drugs.
Good morning, respected chairman, respected dignitaries, seniors, colleagues, and my dear juniors. I am going to be discussing about the antihypertensive drugs that are used in pregnancy. In general, antihypertensive drugs can be broadly classified into 6 categories. The first 2 are the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitors and the angiotensin receptor blockers. However, since they are associated with significant side effects such as renal agenesis, oligohydramnios, IUGR, and various congenital heart diseases, they are strictly contraindicated for use in pregnancy. The third are the beta blockers. Beta blockers are also associated with fetal bradycardia, and atenolol amongst them is associated with IUGR, which is why it is strictly contraindicated. One drug among them, that is labetalol, which is both an alpha and a beta blocker, was found to be safe during pregnancy and is also the drug of choice for use in gestational hypertension. The fourth class are the calcium channel blockers. Calcium channel blockers are also associated with maternal hypotension. However, nifedipine amongst them was found to be the safest and therefore can be used during pregnancy. The fifth are the diuretics. Diuretics can cause maternal hypovolemia, which can compromise the fetal circulation and are also associated with electrolyte abnormalities, which is why they are also strictly contraindicated. The last includes various other drugs also, such as methyl dopa, which is a centrally acting sympatholytic, and hydralazine, which is a direct acting vasodilator. So broadly, 4 drugs amongst the antihypertensive drugs can be used. These 4 drugs can be used for use in pregnancy. Now I am going to be discussing about the individual drugs and their mechanism of action. Since labetalol is the drug of choice, we will be discussing about it first. Labetalol is a competitive alpha-1 as well as a competitive non-selective beta blocker and acts on 3 major systems. The first is the central and the peripheral nervous system, where it blocks the alpha-1 receptor, resulting in the vasodilatation of the blood vessels. The second, it acts on the beta-1 receptors in the heart, and this helps to decrease the reflex tachycardia which is caused by the alpha-1 receptor blockade in the blood vessels. The third, it acts on the Golgi apparatus in the kidneys, where it blocks the beta-1 receptor, resulting in decreased production of renin and thereby decreasing the blood pressure. Its dose is around 100 mg twice daily, which can be given at a maximum of 2400 mg per day orally. It is available in both oral and IV formulations, and its half-life is about 4 to 6 hours. Very rare studies of hepatotoxicity were found as a side effect of labetalol.
Can you tell me, there are other beta blockers, all right, like metoprolol, atenolol. Why you are using labetalol? Why it has been so popular or so desired in pregnancy hypertension?
Sir, labetalol is basically, sir, it is acts on the both alpha and beta receptors.
Yes.
It helps in, it is very useful, especially in acute hypertensive episodes, since it has a very short duration of action as well. And
नहीं, पर आप तो डेली दे रहे हो अगर crisis नहीं है तो.
outpatient basis पे भी, sir, it is used regularly. There have been no
Is that the cause?
Huh?
Is that the cause? Differentiate from other beta blockers. What is it?
Sir,
Any medicine or cardiology resident can tell this. Yes. No, not the side effects.
sir,
The very simple fact, you have mentioned that it acts on both beta blockers and alpha adrenergic blockers.
Yes, sir.
All right. And the best part of labetalol, it doesn't reduces the uteroplacental flow,
Blood
circulation.
blood pressure.
While rest, they act on centrally. On the heart, they will reduce the heart rate. This also reduces the heart rate, but they will compromise with the uteroplacental flow. This drug does not compromise with the uteroplacental flow. All right.
Yes.
So there are no IGR, no effects on the
Baby.
fetus.
Yes.
That is why it is preferred drug. ठीक है ना?
Yes.
और कौन सी preferred drug है?
Sir, amongst beta blockers.
नहीं.
In general, sir, in pregnancy, we can go for calcium channel blockers such as nifedipine, and as well as some direct acting vasodilators such as hydralazine, and one centrally acting sympatholytic methyl dopa is also used.
Methyl dopa
but
we
it
were
has-
using during our residency program, and is very safe drug. I don't know why. I was talking to Swati yesterday or day before yesterday. Why it is not available? Because for the mild hypertension or mild preeclampsia, it is wonderful drug. Even in the non-pregnant, I was using for my mother for so many years. And this vasodilator basically. Why it is not?
Sir, I'll be discussing it in the next
Okay.
case, sir.
Chalo.
Now we're going to be talking about methyl dopa. Alpha methyl dopa is a centrally acting sympatholytic. It converts into alpha methyl norepinephrine by dopa beta hydroxylase and acts as an agonist at the alpha 2 receptor, thereby decreasing the adrenergic neuronal outflow, resulting in dilatation in the blood vessels and therefore decreasing the blood pressure. Its dose is 250 milligram, which can be given 3 to 4 times per day and can be increased up to 2 gram per day orally. It was available in both oral and IV formulations and has a half-life of 1.5 to 2 hours. However, since significant side effects such as sedation, postpartum depression, and some studies of orthostatic hypotension were also seen with alpha methyl dopa, it has been discontinued now.
So this orthostatic position, whether you are using labetalol or methyl dopa,
Yes, sir.
is most important. You have to tell the patient कि suddenly उठना नहीं है, उठ के बैठना नहीं है, suddenly खड़े नहीं होना है, ठीक है ना? रात को बाथरूम जाना है, suddenly उठ के नहीं चलना है. Postural hypotension because of the alpha adrenergic and beta, ठीक है ना? Both effects. Mainly alpha. So both are there, ठीक है ना?
Yes, sir.
So postural hypotension has to be kept in mind and to be told to the patient.
The third drug is nifedipine. Nifedipine is a dihydropyridine calcium channel blocker. It acts on the voltage-gated L-type calcium channel calcium channels in the smooth muscle and blocks them, which is why there is decreased intracellular calcium influx, resulting in the smooth muscle relaxation, and therefore resulting in vasodilatation and decrease in the blood pressure. One additional benefit is that due to relaxation of smooth muscle, it can also be used as a tocolytic in preterm labor. Its dose is around 10 to 30 milligram orally, which can be given 6 to 8 hours. and maximum dose is 180 milligram per day orally. It is available in the oral formulation only. IV formulation is not available and has a half-life of about 2 hours.
अदालत के नाम से आती थी, इफ यू रिमेम्बर, है नेफेडिपिन, अदालत, है मेडिसिन वाले बहुत यूज कर देते
हैं. Slightly higher risk of low birth weight was found than labetalol or methyldopa with use of nifedipine, and other side effects also include such as flushing, reflex tachycardia, and pedal edema. Now, what antihypertensive drugs that can be used in severe preeclampsia include 3 major drugs. The first is the labetalol, which can be given as 20 milligram IV and then 40 milligram after 10 minutes and then 80 milligram every 10 minutes with continuous BP monitoring. It can be increased up to a dose of 300 milligram and can also be given as infusion at a rate of 1 to 2 milligram per minute IV. It has a very short onset of action of 1 to 2 minutes. The second drug is hydralazine. Hydralazine can be given as 5 milligram IV or IM and then 5 to 10 milligram every 20 to 40 minutes. Its maximum dose is 20 milligram and can also be given as infusion at a rate of 0.5 to 10 milligram per hour. It has a slightly longer onset of action of 10 to 20 minutes than labetalol. Its mechanism is not completely understood. However, it is thought to be a direct arterial vasodilator. It relaxes the arterial smooth muscles by inhibiting the accumulation of free calcium via an identified primary target. The third drug is nifedipine. Nifedipine, as already discussed, can be given as 10 to 20 milligram every 2 to 6 hours and can be increased up to 180 milligram per day. Its IV preparation is not available and it also has a very short onset of action of 5 to 10 minutes. One thing I would like to point out is that magnesium sulfate should also be used for the prevention and treatment of seizures in women with gestational hypertension with severe features, preeclampsia with severe features, and eclampsia.
You want to say magnesium sulfate as antihypertensive?
No, sir. It is used in the severe preeclampsia as, sir, basically preventing epileptic seizures. And
so is it anti-epileptic?
Sir, it acts as an anticonvulsant because it acts on the NMDA receptors in the brain.
Magsulf के और use बताओ. Indications. Daily आप hospital में use करते.
Sir, it can be given in a
commonest use of magnesium sulfate.
Sir, torsade is the point is इसी में sir
short term constipation के लिए use नहीं करते हो? Max नहीं और किस में use करते हो?
Antacid sir.
तो ठीक है. Dressing वगैरह में use नहीं करते हो?
हाँ सर.
क्या बात कर रहे हो? हैं? So magnesium sulfate is anyway that was sideline. Magnesium sulfate is neither anticonvulsant nor antihypertensive. Yes. Here you should have mentioned that which should be known by each and every resident of practicing gynecologist that under any circumstances if the patient of preeclampsia is there, no use of diuretic. कभी भी Lasix या furosemide किसी भी condition में उसको use नहीं करना है because it leads to already hemoconcentration is there. Further hemoconcentration, yes, and hypoperfusion, and patient will be having the total renal failure or other problems. Yes. So, absolute contraindication in preeclampsia or impending eclampsia is not to use diuretic. Okay?
Now, I would like to call upon Dr. Sejal to continue the presentation further.
Thank you, Anish. Now, I would like to talk about obstetric management. How would we manage the patient with preeclampsia with controlled hypertension? If patient presents less than 34 weeks of period of gestation, we will follow up in ANC OPD weekly. And if she presents more than 37 weeks of period of gestation, induction of labor or lower segment cesarean section is recommended if there is any obstetric indication. Regional anesthesia is preferred on the platelet count is more than 75,000. Preeclampsia with severe features. If if patient presents within less than 34 weeks, firstly we'll do steroid coverage for lung maturity. Expectant management is done with close maternal and fetal monitoring. Delivery is done if there is maternal or fetal deterioration. More than 34 weeks, delivery is recommended.
ये डॉक्टर वापस आना स्लाइड पे. स्टेरॉइड कवरेज क्यों देते हैं बेटा?
Sir, for lung maturity of the fetus.
What are the factors responsible for the lung maturity and what gestation it starts?
Sir, before 34 weeks we need to give it for steroid coverage.
कौन से सर्फेक्टेंट्स होते हैं? क्या टेस्ट करते हो आप? LS रेशो का नाम सुना है? क्या होता है?
Acid.
कौन से ईयर के रेजिडेंट हो? थर्ड ईयर.
Sorry.
Lecithin sphingomyelin ratio.
ratio more
So
than.
which is more powerful surfactant?
Sir, betamethasone.
Betamethasone से तो प्रोड्यूस होंगे.
Sir, lecithin is powerful.
80% of surfactant is lecithin.
Lecithin.
ठीक है ना? Sphingomyelin remains throughout pregnancy almost same. ठीक है ना? At 32 to 34 weeks it starts rising.
Right.
Lecithin start rising, and after 34 weeks it almost remains same. That is why what should be the LS ratio?
Sir, 2:1 should be the.
It should be more than 2.
2, more than 2.
उससे पहले कम होगा. ठीक है ना? Then it is lung immaturity. सर ये जो टेस्ट हैं, कौन सा टेस्ट करते हैं LS रेशो के लिए? Any resident, what are we doing? This is what is thin layer chromatography? करते हो? भेजते हो? क्यों? It should be done. एमनियोसेंटिस करो, उसको सेंट्रीफ्यूज करो, जो सुपरनेंट है उसको भेज दीजिए आप लैब में. दे विल गिव यू द रिजल्ट. हैं? LS रेशो को. ठीक है ना? इट इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. ठीक है ना? और इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग देन जस्ट गिव द स्टेरॉइड्स. कितना डोज देते हैं स्टेरॉइड्स? और कौन कौन सा देते हैं?
Betamethasone and dexamethasone. Betamethasone is 12 mg intramuscularly. 2 doses are given.
हाइड्रोकोर्टिजोन दे सकते हैं?
No, sir.
क्यों?
We recommend dexamethasone and betamethasone. Immediate.
Steroids produces lecithin. All right.
Complications of preeclampsia. Maternal complications during pregnancy is eclampsia, antepartum hemorrhage, acute renal failure, cardiac failure, HELLP syndromes, vision disturbances, and premature labor. During labor, it leads to eclampsia, postpartum hemorrhage and shock. Purpurium period, it leads to eclampsia, purpural sepsis, and shock. Fetal complications include intrauterine death, fetal growth restriction, birth asphyxia, and prematurity. Remote complications include residual hypertension and recurrent preeclampsia. Intrapartum management, patient should be in bed, antihypertensive drugs should be continued, BP and urine output should be frequently noted. We should carefully watch for signs and symptoms of impending eclampsia. Prophylactic magnesium sulfate should be given if BP is more than 160 by 110 mm of Hg.
Do you know the dose of magnesium sulfate?
Yes, sir. We give it by the Pritchard regime. Many regimes are followed. It will be discussed further. 14 gram IV loading dose is given, in which 4 gram IV is given, and 5 gram IM in alternate in both buttocks is given. And further, by maintaining the blood pressure, further we will give 5. If it is normal, then we will give the maintenance dose of 5 milligrams.
इसमें बेटा थेरापेटिक जो रेंज है ना, बड़ी टॉक्सिक ड्रग है.
Yes, sir.
तो उससे पहले कौन-कौन से टेस्ट मॉनिटर करने के लिए?
So we will look for the knee reflex and the knee jerk of the patient. Urine output will be monitored.
क्या होगा knee reflex?
Sir, it will get absent if it crosses the therapeutic range more than 10.
Therapeutic range?
Sir, it is 7 to 10 milliequivalent per liter.
Then?
Sir, it's normally 4 to 7. If it is more than 7, it will lead to absent.
One is tendon patellar reflex.
Yes, sir. Urine output.
Second?
So we will look for urine output. Respiratory SpO2 will be monitored, and respiratory
rate? Breathing.
Sir, breathing will be seen. Respiratory rate.
क्या rate होनी चाहिए कम से?
Sir, it should be within 14 minutes. 14 per minute.
अगर 12 से कम है, पहले रेस्पिरेटरी अरेस्ट होगा, उसके बाद कार्डियक अरेस्ट. ठीक है? क्यों होता है कार्डियक अरेस्ट?
So further, due to vasoconstriction leading to
calcium channel blockers.
That
is why you do not give too much dose IV. All right? That is why you give intramuscular alternatively and monitor the magnesium level. All right?
Yes, labor duration should be curtailed. In first stage, low rupture of membranes, and in second stage, forceps or ventouse application. Postpartum, strict vigilance should be done for 48 hours. BP and urine output should be monitored.
Strict vigilance for 48 hours?
Sir, it should be the BP monitoring should be done.
There can be eclampsia seizures.
Sir,
Yes,
eclampsia is common in post.
How many percentage you can get seizures in postpartum period?
Sir, around 10%.
25%.
10 to 20%.
25% patient. That is why it is important to continue with the Maxel for at least next 24 hours and to watch for the seizures.
Yes, sir.
मान लो कि पेशेंट इज कॉन्ट्राइंडिकेटेड फॉर मैक्सल या मैक्सल को रेस्पॉन्स नहीं कर रहा है, व्हाट विल यू डू?
So we'll give other anti-epileptic drugs like diazepam can be given, and phenytoin could be given.
जब हम पीजीआई में थे तो लाइक्टिक कॉकटेल
So yes,
चलता था,
promethazine
एंड
and pethidine.
फेनेंटोइन, ठीक है ना, और मैं ये मैनन्स रेजिम और मोदालिया रेजिम, डॉक्टर पीके देवी जो मेरी टीचर थी, दे आल्सो यूज टू डू दैट, है स्पेशली इन केसेज ऑफ माइस्थीनिया ग्रेविस, है विच इज ऑलरेडी
Contraindication.
देयर यू हैव टू गो विद द ऑल्टरनेटिव रेजिम्स. सपोज उससे भी कंट्रोल नहीं हो रहा है, व्हाट विल यू डू? एक्लेम्प्सिया सीजर्स आ रहे हैं, क्या करोगे? Yes, thiopentane. You ask Ashish Jain, he will put the patient on thiopentane. Yes, status M.
Status.
Epilepticus, ठीक है. बड़े कॉमन पूछ रहा हूँ बेटा, थर्ड ईयर रेजिडेंट हो आप, ये चीज आनी चाहिए.
Diuretics is reserved for patients in pulmonary edema and oliguria, refractory hypertension, renal or cardiac failure. Eclampsia is the occurrence of new onset generalized tonic-clonic seizure in a woman with preeclampsia. It can present in antepartum, intrapartum and postpartum period. Incidence is 1.5% in India, and WHO says that 12% of maternal deaths globally is due to eclampsia. How will we manage the patient presenting with eclampsia? Firstly, we'll call for help. Patient should not be left alone. Bite block should be used as needed to prevent maternal injury. A proper airway should be established and oxygen should be administered. Patient should be positioned left lateral to reduce risk of
So
aspiration.
suppose you are given choice, sequence of, आपसे एग्जाम में पूछते हैं क्या सीक्वेंस रहेगी आपकी एक्लेम्पशिया को मैनेज करने में, सबसे पहले क्या करोगे?
So firstly, we'll use the mouth bite block so that
Ensure the airways first, that is the primary duty. उसने कर लिया तो ऑटोमेटिकली सब चीज हो जाएगा. उसके बाद फिर मैग्सल्फ आएगा, उसके बाद फिर एंटी हाइपरटेंसिव है. दिस शुड बी द ऑर्डर, ठीक है?
Administer loading dose of magnesium sulfate as soon as possible. Control hypertension. Hemodynamic stabilization. Patient is catheterized. Fetal condition is monitored, and further PIH profile with ABG and blood is arranged. Obstetric management. Eclampsia is an absolute contraindication to expectant management. Treatment is delivery of fetus. Route being vaginal delivery is preferred. Indications of cesarean section in case of abruption, fetal bradycardia, and further any obstetric.
Abruptio placenta in more chances in eclampsia.
Due to antihypertensive, there is sudden, when we give the antihypertensive drug, it leads to sudden hypotension leading to
जो
abruption.
थ्योरी आपने लीवर में बताई, जो थ्योरी आपने ब्रेन में बताई, सेम विल अप्लाई हियर, हैं? जो डिस्टल जो मायोमेट्रियल पे जहाँ ये जो क्या कहते हैं इसको,
Vasoconstriction leading to hypoxia.
hypoxia which will lead to the ischemia which will lead to the bleeding clots, and then separation of the placenta will take place, ठीक है ना? Very important. Abruptio placenta complication is very common, and you cannot go for the normal delivery, you have to go for C-section.
Magnesium sulfate, it is a membrane stabilizer, neuroprotector. It reduces presynaptic release of neurotransmitter glutamate and blocks NMDA receptors. It also blocks calcium entry via voltage gated channels, leading to improved maternal, fetal and newborn outcome. Pritchard regime is 4 gram IV over 3 to 4 minutes and followed by 10 gram IM, 5 gram in each buttocks. Maintenance dose is 5 gram IM every 4 hours in alternate buttocks. We look for the deep tendon reflex, urinary output, respiratory rate, and SpO2 is looked. Other regimes are Zuspan regime and Cibai regime. Monitoring of magnesium sulfate, the therapeutic level is 4 to 7 milliequivalent per liter. Earliest sign is depression of patellar reflex. Respiratory depression is further seen. In further toxicity, side effects is warmth, flushing, nausea, vomiting. muscular weakness and respiratory depression. Antidote is 10% of 10 ml of calcium gluconate, slowly IV over 10 minutes. Complications of eclampsia include maternal injury due to fall and tongue bite, placental abruption, aspiration pneumonia, shock, pulmonary edema, cardiac arrest, acute renal failure, disseminated intravascular coagulation, HELP, liver hematoma, retinal detachment, and in 1% cases it could lead to death. In fetal, it could lead to fetal distress, hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, preterm birth, and intrauterine fetal demise. Complications of eclampsia also include posterior reversible encephalopathy syndrome. It involves neurological deficit, seizure, visual disturbances, headache, and altered sensorium. On MRI, there is vasogenic edema and hyperintensities in posterior aspect of brain. Also reversible cerebral vasoconstriction syndrome, which is multifocal narrowing of arteries of brain. Patient presents with thunderclap headache and less commonly neurological deficit or seizure. Treatment is antihypertensive, antiepileptics, and long-term neurological follow-up. Postpartum surveillance is necessary to prevent additional morbidity. We measure the BP 4 hourly until patient is stable, and NSAID should not be used. Patient should not be discharged until BP is well controlled for at least 24 hours. Antihypertensive therapy should be recommended if there is persistent postpartum hypertension and systolic BP is more than 150 or diastolic BP is more than 100. For patients with preeclampsia, further visits are recommended within 3 to 5 days, again in 7 to 10 days, and after 6 weeks. Now I will be discussing case scenarios, and I would request my fellow colleagues to tell 20-year-old priming gravida presented to Mahatma Gandhi ANC OPD at 30 weeks of gestation for routine checkup. Her blood pressure was 150 by 100 mm of Hg, and repeat BP after 30 minutes was 150 by 100 mm of Hg. Pedal edema was seen, and urine albumin was 1+ on dipstick.
Are you doing dipstick in your department? कैसे बोल दिया आपने? अपनी लैब में क्या होता है?
Sir, in the minor OT we do for the severe preeclampsia. We have.
नहीं करते हो क्या dipstick test?
So the diagnosis is preeclampsia. Management is on outpatient basis. Antihypertensive is started, labetalol being the first drug of choice. All PIH profile is sent, and USG fetal well-being with Doppler is recommended. Weekly ANC follow-up is done with BP and weight record, and daily charting of fetal counts. Patient is monitored until 37 weeks, and further termination of pregnancy is recommended. Case 2, 31-year-old priming gravida presented to ANC OPD at 33 weeks of gestation with complaints of epigastric pain and headache. On examination, pedal edema was seen, and blood pressure was 170 by 110. Urine albumin was 3+.
What do you mean by 3+? How much should be the protein?
So one
normal कितना होता है?
So less than point.
What is the normal? Even the traces of albumin might be there. So up to 150 milligram is the normal. If it is more than 300 milligram, it is 1+. 3+ means almost very high quantity.
More than 1 gram.
But can you judge the severity of the preeclampsia by albumin criteria? If the suppose urine albumin was 2+ or 1+, what will be your?
It signifies the glomerular damage.
No, it will not reflect the severity. Severity will be reflected by epigastric pain and headache, other associated symptoms, not the proteinuria. Proteinuria may be less, proteinuria may be more, depend on the end organ target failure. Yes.
So the diagnosis is severe preeclampsia with imminent eclampsia. We admit the patient in labor room. Corticosteroid coverage is given. Magnesium sulfate prophylaxis is given, and antihypertensive drug is started. USG fetal well-being with monitoring of fetal heart rate and lab test is done, and termination of pregnancy is recommended. Case 3 is 38-year-old Gravida 2 Para 1 Live 1 presented to MCH OPD at 13 weeks of gestation. She had a history of hypertension since 5 years and was on medication. On examination, her blood pressure was 150 by 100 mm of Hg. So the diagnosis is chronic hypertension. We'll send for the routine antenatal investigations and investigations for other organ involvement. All history of the antihypertensive drugs which she was taking with dosage and duration of treatment will be taken. Close monitoring is needed as these patients are prone to develop superimposed preeclampsia. USG KUB with renal artery Doppler is advised. We changed the drug to labetalol being the first choice. Antepartum fetal monitoring is done. And
मैं पहले वापस जाना स्लाइड पे नहीं ये एनलप्रिल दिस इज नॉट indicated and is contraindicated to be used in the pregnancy. ACE inhibitors बता रहा हूँ जिसने भी यूज किया है वो गलत यूज किया है तो आपको ध्यान रखना चाहिए. Neither angiotensin converting enzymes and ACE inhibitor are totally contraindicated in pregnancy. चलो.
Now I would like to call upon Dr. Priyanka ma'am to take on.
So I think after a detailed discussion, ultimately we come to the take-home message, that is early detection is the key. So we should be able to recognize the various risk factors so that we can detect the preeclampsia on time and ask the patient to follow up regularly in antenatal visits and so that her blood pressure can be monitored. Early diagnosis and follow-up can be done to identify the danger signs and to prevent the severe preeclampsia and eclampsia. And for this, we need a multidisciplinary approach involving the obstetrician, the radiologist for the proper monitoring of the baby with USG, fetal well-being and Dopplers, the neonatologist if in case we need to do an early delivery, and the intensivist if a patient lands up in eclampsia and needs to be monitored and managed in ICU. And hence, ultimately, you cannot manage what you do not monitor. Thank you so much. And in the end, I would like to thank all the PGCR review committee and the collaborative departments, the Department of General Medicine and Department of Physiology. And one more thing I would like to tell here, our Pro VC sir, Dr. VK Kapoor sir has started a new initiative, that is a Jaipur paper clinic, in which all the third years who have completed their thesis, they can publish them in our journal, and so they can take our help to edit and improve our the manuscripts. All HODs and faculty colleagues are requested to kindly get the needful done. There is a link which is a Google form for the Jaipur paper clinic. You can go through it and fill the form. Thank you so much.